Imagine a product so powerful that it generates profit without producing anything tangible. A product so invisible that most people don't even realize they are buying it every single day of their lives. That product is debt. Debt is not a neutral financial instrument. It has been deliberately crafted to be the most profitable product in human history. It has funded wars, toppled empires, enslaved nations, and quietly drained the wealth of ordinary people. Yet, ask most people where debt came from, who designed it, or why it dominates our financial system, and they couldn't tell you. The story of debt is not just an economic history. It is the story of money and power itself. In its simplest form, debt is a promise. You borrow today and agree to pay tomorrow. But hidden inside that promise is the core of financial control: interest. Charging interest is the act of turning the future into profit. Welcome to Paper Empire's history. Today we tell the story of how debt transformed from a simple contract into an empire that rules the world. For thousands of years, societies struggled with this idea. In ancient Mesopotamia, debts were recorded on clay tablets, but they were also periodically wiped clean. Leaders knew that when too many citizens were trapped in a debt trap, the system would collapse. Even in the Bible, debt forgiveness was commanded every 50 years. The idea was simple. Debt was dangerous. If left unchecked, it could enslave entire populations. But fast forward through the centuries, and you will see how elites learned not to erase debt, but to weaponize it. In medieval Europe, although the church banned usury, merchants and bankers found ways around it. By the Renaissance, banking dynasties like the Medici in Florence built empires not on land or armies, but on credit. They financed kings and popes. In return, they received not only money, but political leverage. Debt was now more than a financial product. It was the engine of power. The real transformation came in the 17th century with the invention of sovereign debt. The Dutch Republic and later England began financing wars not with gold from a treasury, but by selling the future. With the creation of the Bank of England in 1694, national debt became a permanent institution. The state no longer borrowed just for emergencies. It lived on debt, rolling it over endlessly. If wars no longer bankrupted kings, they could last forever. It was a perfect loop. As nations fought, they borrowed. As they borrowed, their creditors became richer. By the 18th and 19th centuries, bond markets in London, Paris, and Amsterdam had become the beating heart of global finance. Armies marched, ships sailed, colonies were conquered, all on borrowed money. But this wasn't limited to nations. As industrial capitalism spread, ordinary people were drawn into this cycle. Railroads and factories were financed by bonds. Workers earned wages from companies funded by debt, and then they themselves borrowed to buy homes, tools, and consumer goods. Debt seeped into every layer of economic life. By the 20th century, debt was no longer just a tool for governments or tycoons. It had become an everyday product sold to the masses. Mortgages, car loans, credit cards, student loans. The entire architecture of modern life was constructed to normalize borrowing as the default condition of existence. And here lies the hidden genius, or the hidden cruelty of it all. Debt doesn't just create profit once. Every interest payment is a transfer of wealth from the debtor to the creditor, from the many to the few, repeated month after month, year after year. Unlike a product you buy once and use, debt is designed to be permanent. With the Bretton Woods agreements of 1944, this reality was institutionalized. The IMF and the World Bank were founded to lend money to nations in crisis. But behind the lofty rhetoric lay a simple mechanism: debt as discipline. Countries could borrow, but the terms were dictated by the creditors. Under structural adjustment, national economies were told what to cut and what to privatize. Debt wasn't just profitable, it was a lever of political control. Over-indebted nations lost their sovereignty. Their policies were written not in their own capitals, but in Washington or Basel. The rhetoric was about stability and growth. The reality was dependency. At the same time, banks discovered a way to sell debt not just to governments, but directly to households. The mortgage became the crown jewel of the middle-class dream. Owning a home became possible for millions, but only on one condition: signing a contract that chained families to 30 years of payments. Credit cards and installment plans marketed debt like any other consumer product. The psychological shift was massive. Being in debt was no longer shameful. It was the normal way to participate in prosperity. Buy now, pay later. For banks, this was a goldmine. For governments, it was the illusion of endless growth. Demand could be kept alive by credit even if wages stagnated. However, the system was addicted to expansion. Banks didn't want debts to be repaid quickly. They wanted them rolled over, restructured, and grown. The longer people stayed in debt, the more profitable it was. In the 1980s, the financial industry found ways to package and sell debt itself. Loans and bonds were turned into globally tradable securities. Debt was no longer just a contract between borrower and lender. It was a commodity sliced, diced, and sold to investors. Wall Street stopped producing goods and started manufacturing debt instruments. This process was called financialization. The 2008 collapse was the logical outcome of this. A trillion-dollar system built on the assumption that American homeowners would never default en masse imploded. Debt had been stretched beyond reality, and when it snapped, the whole world trembled. Governments stepped in, not to punish those selling bad debt, but to bail them out. Ordinary families lost their homes, banks were saved, and when the dust settled, the use of debt didn't shrink, it grew. The very crisis caused by debt became the excuse to create even more of it. Central banks cut interest rates to zero and flooded the system with liquidity. This extraordinary medicine actually supercharged the addiction. Today, global debt exceeds $300 trillion, more than 3 times the world's annual economic output. Never in human history have so many owed so much to so few. And the irony is, this mountain of obligations is celebrated as growth. Inflation is the hidden tax that makes repayment possible. It silently melts the value of money in people's pockets while keeping the debt system afloat. What looks like prosperity is often just leverage stacked on leverage. And now with central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, the next evolution of debt is on the horizon. Programmable, traceable money. Loans approved or denied instantly by algorithms. To many, this sounds like efficiency. But if the history of debt teaches us anything, it is this. Efficiency for the creditor means less freedom for the debtor. So, what is the lesson here? Debt is not neutral. It is not a natural feature of modern life. Debt is the most profitable product ever created, turning time itself into money, transforming the hopes of individuals and the struggles of nations into rivers of interest flowing upward. Real wealth is minimizing your dependence on borrowing, questioning the promises of easy credit, and knowing that behind every loan offer is a machine designed to profit from your future. History doesn't repeat, but the pattern is always there. From Mesopotamian tablets to suburban mortgages, the story is the same. Debt enriches the creditor, crushes the debtor, and reshapes the world in favor of those who control the flow of money. And the cruelest trick is that they taught us to celebrate this as progress. If what I shared today helped you see the world from a different perspective, don't forget to subscribe, because history always has an answer. You just need to look from the right angle, and I am here to help you find those answers buried in the dusty pages of financial history.